My favorite saint is Saint Therese, the little flower. Saint Therese speaks about the little way. She talks about the importance of being small so God can be large in our lives. And I've always been fascinated with Saint Therese. And there's a statue in my grandparents' house that my grandmother received when she was like 12 years old, picking cotton. She saved money to buy this statue of Saint Therese. And I would always go to her house and I would look at it on the farm. And then my mother inherited that statue, and so it's there in my family home. And I've always been intrigued with her. And then when I was named a bishop, somehow Saint Therese, I think, just came to my heart so much. And Saint Therese kept telling me, "Be small, be little, be small." And she was with me the entire time when it was a secret for 2 weeks, and then for the 4 months of preparation. And from 3 years later, St. Therese is still my saint. There's a verse from the Book of Kings, "Give to your servant a listening heart." Even before I was ordained a priest, that intrigued me. It's actually the Hebrew's Leb Shemaya. And I did my diaconate retreat at a retreat center called Leb Shemaya. And so it was even reinforced more, and I did more research on it. And it was King Solomon, of course, being asked, what would he want for his faithfulness? You can ask anything. You can ask for riches. You can ask for the death of your enemies. You can ask for fame and wisdom. And he asked for a discerning heart, a listening heart. And I think as a bishop, I chose that motto because bishops are called to listen. I certainly did it for 33 years as a priest, but I see the importance of listening even more as a bishop in the church. So give your servant a listening heart is very important to me. When I received that call from the nuncio asking if I would become auxiliary bishop in San Antonio, I was shocked. I think our Cardinal Pierre now was a little frustrated with me, I think, because I got the call. I'll never forget. It was a Monday. I was working at our counseling center. I saw clients on Monday. It was 5:30. I was at my desk eating a bowl of cereal. I knew I had a 6:30 meeting, and I get this call, and it says Washington, D.C. on my cell phone. And I thought it was one of those scam calls. I'm not answering this. And then it kept ringing. I thought, well, maybe there's something. Maybe it's important. I don't know what it is. And I never thought that. So I answered it, and I heard that voice. Asked who is this Father Gary Janak? And so I said yes, and he introduced himself. And he says, the Holy Father, he goes right into it. He says, the Holy Father has appointed you as auxiliary bishop in the Archdiocese of San Antonio. And then almost immediately said, do you accept? And it's like, oh my, it's like, I was just speechless, and I was shocked, and I was saying, I don't understand. I'm not worthy. I kept saying that. And he was so kind. And the cardinals began speaking about other things. And well, San Antonio, right? Yes, I studied there as a seminarian. And he tried to ease my heart. And at the end, finally, I think I kept saying, but I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy. And finally he says, why don't you sit down and just take a breath? And so I did. And then I think he got frustrated, and he said, well, the Holy Father thinks you are worthy. Do you accept? And so in the end, I told him, I said, I've never asked for an assignment, and I've never refused an assignment. So I said, yes, I would accept. So it was one of those days that I'll never forget. I've never had a problem speaking in front of people, even though I'm more of an introvert, but God's always given me that grace to do so. But I think from being a pastor, even being chancellor of the Diocese of Victoria when I was, it's a smaller diocese, I could go up there and speak even spontaneously. But now in a large archdiocese and being a bishop now, it's a little bit different. And I guess what surprises me the most is how large the stage is, and also how many people expect me to have all these answers, or they ask all these questions, or all the emails I get. It's like, I didn't anticipate that. Certainly I wasn't ready for that, but I didn't anticipate that kind of exposure so quickly after being ordained a bishop. Yeah, it started, even before I was ordained. My grandmother, they didn't say it back then when I was growing up. It was always that stigma of mental illness. But my grandfather, my dad's mom, was depressed, had major depression. And I was always wondering when I was growing up why she would sit off by herself, and she didn't smile very much. And it was different enough for me to know, even as a child, that this wasn't normal. And they just said, well, she wasn't feeling well, or that something happened when she was little. And so there's kind of excuses made, kind of hush hush, so to speak. And it always stuck with me, though. And then as I went to the seminary and began learning more about the different stages of who we are and our seasons of life, and learning more about body, mind, and spirit, and how we take care of ourselves, et cetera, including mentally, I began to understand that's what my grandmother was going through. And I began hearing the stories of others that suffered from mental illness. And my own father, several years before he died, he experienced major depression, and just trying to get the help that he needed. And being from a small town where I was raised, we didn't have a whole lot of resources. We had to go to bigger cities to get help. And I remember feeling so lost. And it wasn't the church's fault, but I knew we couldn't go to the church because there were no resources. We had to kind of figure it out on our own. And that left an impression on me. And when I was ordained a priest, almost immediately I realized that 2 classes in pastoral counseling were not enough in my seminary formation. And after a few years, after hearing people and my parishioners and others and members of the laity, and even my own brother priests suffering from mental illness of different kinds, I realized I needed to go back to school. So I did, and that was before online classes or anything else. I mean, it meant Saturday mornings, going to class, rushing back for a wedding in the afternoon, evening classes, working all day in the parish, and then driving about 45 minutes to class to sit until 9 o'clock at night. But it was gratifying to me. It was something that I wanted to do, just did it on my own with my bishop's permission. And I was encouraged to go further and to become licensed and sit for my exam, and I did, and I was grateful for that. And then I began seeing more people. And outside the parish, priests were sending me their own parishioners that they couldn't help. And I realized that we have a need here in this diocese. Even though it's small and more rural, we need to help them more. And so with the blessings of the bishop who had just arrived, Bishop Cahill at that time in my life was just a godsend, and helped me with my idea of creating a counseling center for our diocese. I really had the name of it, the Emmaus Center. And he gave me permission within a few months of his arriving there. And he always laughs. He tells a story. He says, I don't do anything quickly. He says, but I did that quickly. And within maybe 8 months or so or less of his arriving in Victoria, we had our own counseling center. So it's been exciting to see how it continues to grow, and we offer spiritual direction as well. They have therapists, spiritual directors, and they're helping just hundreds and hundreds of people every year. So that was my entrance into it. And now in the Archdiocese of San Antonio, we have the Grace Counseling Center, part of Catholic Charities, which is helping so many people as well. And it's just a blessing to see that. The concern is that they're not sure where they can get help. And that's why I think a diocese, even if it's small, there's something that can be done. And that's why I appreciate the mental health initiative of the conference of the USCCB and some universities. I was in contact with a Catholic university not long ago. They found out about my helping to form the Emmaus Center. It's like, how do you do that in a small rural diocese with limited resources? And so they put together an aid in which a booklet that can show here's different models of how it might work in a diocese regardless of the size. And I'm so gratified that we're working more in these kinds of initiatives, because we know that the need is there, and the people of God are getting the help, I think, now that just wasn't available even a few years ago. And the expectation that they want to turn to the church for help, because the stigma is still there in a lot of ways, and they feel more comfortable when they know that they can have Catholic-based professional help. And sometimes they don't maybe need the professional help. Sometimes they just need someone to have a listening heart, to have a listening ear, and maybe spiritual direction. So I think we have a lot of resources now that we're trying to identify for the people. And I think we did it in Victoria before the counseling center came. It's like, let's vet counselors that are willing to work with Christians. Really allowing faith issues to be spoken about. And some secular counselors don't feel comfortable doing that. So we began vetting those counselors. at least offering priests a list of resources to help their people. But we're doing those things from something small to something really on large scale now. And I think it's helped in the healing process a lot. Parishes can be a tremendous help for those who are seeking healing, especially with mental health issues, because we're at the forefront. I mean, people want to turn to their parish for help. They don't know sometimes to even call the diocese or the archdiocese. I think there are people in San Antonio, for example, that aren't even aware that we have our own counseling center. The first point of contact is the pastor. And that pastor, that parish priest can help their people to know where the resources are. But sometimes it means just first and foremost just listening to what their needs are. We might find out it's individual counseling, maybe family counseling is needed, maybe marriage counseling. So when they know that they can come to their parish and they're always welcomed and time is being set aside for them, and if the pastor can't meet with them or the parochial vicar, then maybe that trained lay person can sit and they can feel heard. And then they can go, if they believe they need additional help, then you can offer them those resources. But first and foremost, we want people to come to their parishes. It's their spiritual home. It's the lifeblood of the church. I always tell people that the life of the church is in our parishes. And that's why we want to help our parishes to be strong. And we want to help pastors to be good, vibrant, strong leaders, because that's where the people go. The people of God go to their parishes. I think pastoral care is different. Even when we speak about mental health, we have to understand the whole person. That if we want to help people to be mentally strong and stabilized in their life, to live a full, balanced life as a follower of Christ, then we have to look at their physical health and we have to look at their spiritual health. So it's, as St. Paul says, it is body, mind, spirit. So that whole picture of who the people of God are, the faithful, is that we have to provide not only counseling centers, but indeed maybe open our gyms, and we have events for young people and young adults and children to understand the importance of physical fitness, to be able to understand that maybe every parish can have a spiritual director. We have so many programs now. San Antonio has a wonderful program that Bishop Billette started several years ago, in which they have a 3-year program of training Catholic laity to become spiritual directors. And lots of parishes now have their own spiritual director, because sometimes they don't need professional help, they don't need psychological assistance, they need spiritual assistance. And so I think it's exciting that mental health initiatives are speaking not just in a singular way, but in a whole understanding of the human person in body, mind, and spirit. So if I'm going to help someone with depression, one of the questions I'm going to ask is, do you exercise? And if they say, well, I don't feel safe going somewhere, I feel intimidated going to a public gym or what it might be, say, maybe the parish has a gym that they can open. Maybe they can start their own program. And I think that helps families to understand that the parish is their spiritual home, where they can go in body, mind, and spirit, experience healing, experience strength, and experience the wholeness of who we're called to be as created by God. I think the priest, I'm an auxiliary, so I'm not an ordinary of the diocese, and so they're not really, it's not really not my priest there, but I mean, I'm one of the spiritual leaders, certainly, as one of the bishops, and the priest, they make me proud all the time, considering, especially the young priests. I'm very privileged in that the Archbishop has asked me to help the priest to walk their first 5 years. And so those first 5 years of ordination, like the first 5 years of marriage, are very important. And you learn good habits, you can learn some bad habits. And so body, mind, and spirit, as we've been speaking about, to teach them how to take care of themselves in all aspects of who they are. And I'm really proud of the priest in the Archdiocese. I'm proud of how some of them, ordained only a year or so, are being asked already to be in positions of leadership. And I'm proud of several of them, of how they stepped up to the plate. They are strong. They're doing not just what they're asked to do, they're finding vibrancy and life in it, and they're open to young adults, and they're helping schools that are Catholic schools that are struggling. They're becoming stronger just by their presence. They're over there, kicking the soccer ball with the kids and interacting with them, and parents like that. And so we don't have enough for the younger priests, but the ones that we have, I'm proud. I'm so proud of them. And I'm proud of the priests that are close to retirement that are still giving of themselves with the spirit of love. You know, they're not worn out. They don't appear so tired. They'll say, I want to keep giving as long as I can because the Lord has blessed me so much in my life. And I love my people. And those priests, so often they are pastors in small rural areas that if they weren't there, I don't know if we would have a pastor for them. And they're staying on, but they're doing it as a sense of love and dedication. And they're happy. And they're happy in doing it. So I'm proud of the priest. Sure. Yeah. As vocation director for the Archdiocese, I'm very privileged to be able to walk with a lot of men that are discerning priesthood. And I just think about that we have 5 new seminarians coming up for this year, and I'm excited. And being able to be a part of that journey, that for some of them, maybe it's 6 months. For some of them, we've been walking with them for 2 years. But I found that a misconception sometimes between bishops and priests of what maybe a seminarian or others think is that somehow that bishops don't understand priests. Most bishops have been pastors. Most bishops have run parishes. I think sometimes they believe that maybe the bishop's not going to understand very well what a priest is going through, but which is a misconception because one, bishops probably are going through it themselves, or they have gone through it. You know, the sense of loneliness at times, the sense of being overwhelmed, and the stressors that are there, and the demands that are placed upon them. And I think priests don't always think that their bishop can understand them, when in fact they can. And bishops just want to be that bridge. They want to be that bridge to their priest. And it's not a wall that's going to separate them, but a bridge that can unite them to say, look, we're all serving the Lord. We love God's people. We love God. We love our vocation, but we need to support each other. So there's not a sense of division. There has to be a sense of unity. So I think that could be a misconception that maybe the bishop's not going to understand what I'm going through. World Youth Day in Lisbon was great. I was so happy to attend. It was my very first one to attend. I'd never gone as a priest. I went as a bishop, and I was excited. I was thrilled with the energy. As I know always, the young people bring great energy to the church, and that's why they're vibrant. And the saying of they're not the future, they're the present. And I think that's so true, is that we count on them not just later, but right now. And I think that's why synodality that Pope Francis has given to us and initiated is so important. We got to listen to them more. So I think what I learned from World Youth Day was how can we better listen to our youth and to our young adults? How can we better interact with them? I see their faith. They're incredibly faithful. They believe in God. They can feel God's presence. They want to draw closer to Jesus, but we have to be able to go to them. Sometimes we just kind of wait. I think World Youth, they taught me, I can't wait for them to come to the church. The church has to go to them so that we can help them as leaders to discover that they are the church. They're a vital part of it, of the body of Christ. And that really put me on the right setting, because I hadn't been ordained that long before I went to World Youth Day. And I think that's left a great impression on me, especially as vocation director, where young adults will tell me, come to our events, but we're not necessarily going to wait for the Archdiocese to have an event, but they want their bishops, they want their priests, they want their religious present. So there are times when I go to their volleyball games, there's like more than 1,000 young adults in San Antonio that are on this app, and they have their own, they call it Abound. It's their own grouping. And they've already they're a nonprofit right now. They're formed because they're close to the Lord. They have their own sessions or prayer time, that they're learning of the faith, and they invite us. But they're not coming to us. They want us to go to them, so to speak. And through that process, I think we're all discovering a lot. We're learning a lot from them. I hope they're learning more from the leadership of the church as well. But it's present there. It's just being present to them. So it's really been a great opportunity. But we need them, and because they're the church. It's exciting to see how the Archdiocese has taken the initiative of so many dioceses throughout the country, and having more programs addressing mental health, creating centers for counseling. But I know in the Archdiocese what has moved me so much, the impact I think it's made, it was very simple. Last year we had a Mass for the first time for those who lost loved ones by suicide. And that no one really was talking about it publicly in that way, to say, let's just say the word suicide. Let's talk about the issue. And we know the statistics. We know that there is increasing an alarming number of young people and teenagers that are taking their lives. Sometimes even, they're not even teens, it's children. I once buried a girl that just turned 13 that died of suicide. And so it's there, and I think families and friends who have lost loved ones by suicide have felt like the church will bury them, they'll take care of them in that way, but they don't know maybe how to help that healing process, because it's so different than anything else. It's a different kind of mental illness. So we had that mass for those who lost loved ones by suicide. I've not received that many emails, positive emails, about anything that I've done since I was there in 3 years. Beautiful emails saying thank you. Thank you for the church acknowledging what has been in our hearts for so long, is that we tried, but we couldn't save our loved one. That you assured us that God is a loving God, that God is merciful. They did a ceremony in which everyone came to present a rose, and the church was lined with people that came holding those roses. It was overwhelming to see so many people in one place that lost a loved one by suicide. So I think that was a wake-up call to me and to the entire Archdiocese, really, to say mental health initiatives is to seek healing and understanding at all levels, and including taking that painful approach sometimes and saying, let's talk about the unspeakable. And those that have experienced loved ones, or maybe they themselves have been on the verge of suicide, appreciate that the unspeakable is being spoken. And I think that's part of the mental health initiative. We have to say it. We have to mourn with them. We have to be a part of the healing process. And that's the hard work of the church. And that's exactly what I believe Christ is calling us to do. I'm the vocation director for the Archdiocese. I was vocation director when I was a younger priest for the Diocese of Victoria, and I never thought I'd be in this position again. But the Archbishop asked me 3 years ago, and I said, certainly. And I have to say that the seminarians have been a joy to me. They've enlivened my priesthood in so many ways. But the joy it is to walk with young men that are thinking about priesthood. One, it's more than you realize. I think that people think, oh, no one's considering priesthood or religious life today. That is not true at all. You'd be surprised the number of men and women that are considering it. But sometimes, it's not the most popular thing, or it's rather confusing in terms of the world, because the world says success is defined in terms of your career, your profession, and the Catholic Church speaks about their vocation. And that's what I always say to young people, especially like at confirmation masses. I said, I challenge you. I'm not ignoring your call to a career or a profession, and most of you perhaps will be called to marriage, that beautiful vocation. But some of you I know are called to priesthood or consecrated life. So focus, just like if you're thinking about marriage, focus on your vocation. Focus on your calling, because that's not a job. That's not a profession. Brings purpose to our life. It's why God created us. And so what I've seen in the young men, for example, that I'm working with, is that while maybe sometimes their families aren't very supportive of the idea, or maybe even amongst their friends, is that they're close to the Lord, and they love the church, but maybe they haven't really practiced their faith for a while, but this call's here. Or they've been close to the church and they don't know what to do with this call. And so I have the honor of walking with them and discerning, and just listening more to what that call means. So I encourage them we have a monthly support group. We have a discernment program, like once a month, for those that are more serious about it. They come and live at the seminary, and we have time for prayer and interaction with the seminarians and service project. And then I encourage them to be involved in their parish, to go find out, go shadow your pastor, go work in some type of ministry in the parish. Find out what is it like to go out of yourself, to think about serving others by actually doing it. And so in that way, I've been really pleased with those men that have said, I'm ready to take that next step. And so the vocations are there. God is calling. I think vocation directors, all of God's faithful in leadership positions, are called to help them to better discern.